Okay, I'm going to continue today talking about distributorship agreement. And as I said before, we already covered what is most important about distribution agreement, which is a promise by supplier not to sell products, not to sell the exclusive products in a territory marked out for the distributor. Okay? Distributorship agreement is uniquely important only for that reason, to set up that relationship where distributor sells in certain territory, while supplier does not sell or sells in other territories. After you set up the relationship, you talk about exactly with respect to what products they have exclusive rights. And then there are the protections that supplier usually requires for marking out a certain territory only for distributor, thereby losing the supplier's potential revenue for that territory. That is minimum purchase quantity, territory, basically making the territory as small as possible. Right? Sales efforts, you want the distributor sales efforts to be as strong as possible. Term of exclusivity, as a supplier, you want that to be as short as possible. Now, because it is an agreement that supplier and distributor set up to govern buy and sell and purchase of products, usually most of the distributorship agreements do not end just with these key agreements about the territories and exclusivity. They usually have these other provisions that do not necessarily, that are not really needed for the core purpose of distributorship agreement, but you just put in there because you just want to get these out of the way when you sign the distributorship agreement. Get what out of the way? Well, get the terms of sales and purchase out of the way. So the slide you see is not really a unique part of distributorship agreement, but you can see it as the terms of sale and purchase agreement. Now, in a sale and purchase agreement, as I said, if there is no order, no duty to sell, but also if supplier do not accept the order, then there is no duty to sell. Okay? So actually, what's more important is not that no order, no duty to sell, but no acceptance of order, no duty to sell. So I told you in the last class that if your supplier client hates his distributor, the best way, the best advice for your client is to stop accepting purchase orders coming from that distributor. Supplier has absolute discretion in rejecting or accepting an offer from the distributor. And here, the ordinary law of offer and acceptance governs here. So offer and acceptance can take place through these documents: purchase orders, invoices, offer sheets. You can offer with purchase order, accept with the invoice. You can offer with offer sheet, accept with purchase order. And then there is a such thing as pro forma invoice. Pro forma invoice, which is an invoice issued before the transaction. Sub-distributor, is it allowed? We cover this. Default is to allow, because as soon as in a market economy, it's important that as soon as some goods leave the ownership of one party, then if they leave the ownership of a party, they leave for good. No more control by the previous owner. It's very important for the efficient functioning of a market economy. And I told you that there are these different ways of setting the supplier distributor prices. Now, as to the distributors' reselling prices, I told you that because of the rule of market economy, which is set, which was formalized into antitrust law, 공정거래법, there's no way to control reselling price of distributor. So supplier cannot put in a clause that says, hey, you cannot sell this product below $50 in China. Okay? You cannot do that. Right? Now I'm going to start something new today. Publicity. Now, publicity is the key of distributorship agreement. I mean, the whole reason that you run into, the whole reason that you enter into a distributorship agreement is so that you can invest efficiently into publicizing and advertising the products. Because only when you know that you are the exclusive distributor of the product, that you are the only party that will benefit from the publicity and advertising expenses that you are spending, then you can assure yourself that all the money you are spending is being spent for your own good. Right? So publicity is very important. Now I'm going to talk about this again when I talk about the licenses, but TMs here, trademarks on products. Okay, trademarks on products. What am I talking about? This is trademark. Okay, please. Yes, this is a trademark on products. Now, if I sell this to someone else, do I need a license from Apple in using this trademark in selling the product? Or more simply, when I sell this product, a lot of people will buy it because of this trademark, because it shows that it's made by Apple. So I'm relying on this trademark in making that sale. Right? So in a sense, I'm using the trademark. Do I need a license from Apple to do that? The answer is no. Okay? You don't need that. Why? Because this theory called first sale doctrine or exhaustion theory, which says that when you buy a product, as to that product, the IP owner's right, IP owner's IP right, the IP owner's right as to that product has been exhausted as soon as I bought it, right? So the same thing with selling a pirate copy of movies. You go to Yongsan and you can buy bunches. You can buy a bunch of illegally copied DVDs. Let's say you bought them, and is it illegal to resell them to your friends? No. As to those products, copyright owners' copyright owners' IP rights have been exhausted. Now, it's not something you need to memorize. If you just think about it, first layer doctrine, exhaustion theory, it's really derived from common sense. But I'm not going to talk about that now. But so let's say you want to do publicity, not just using it on the product, not just in the way of turning over the products with the trademarks on them, but you want to do something more. Let's say I buy 100 Apple products and I want to sell them, so I set up I produce a poster, or in Korea, webjabo, that includes Apple mark to publicize to people that I have these Apple products for sale. If you want to do that, okay, if you want to use the trademarks above and beyond what's on the products, then you need a license. So many distributorship agreement has a small license agreement included within the distributorship agreement. And usually the rule is that, not the rule, the majority of the contracts, the majority of such many license provisions within the distributorship agreement give the supplier complete control. Which means, yes, you can, yes, distributor, you are allowed to use these trademarks, supplier's trademarks, but if supplier wants them back, if supplier wants distributor to change the trademarks or stop using the trademarks, usually the agreement says the distributor has to comply. Okay, you have your sample agreement. Can you check whether that agreement has trademark mini license? I'm asking because actually let's see. Okay. All right. Probably this agreement doesn't have it. Marketing, warranty. All right. This one doesn't have it. Okay. And then, so probably if our lawyer for the distributor, if your client is a distributor, if I received the sample agreement that you have, I'll advise my client that you need to put in a clause entitling the distributor to use the trademarks for publicity. Okay? Second, there are times that there is a software embedded in the product. Well, most IT products have software embedded in it. So as a distributor, you buy them and you resell them. Do you need a license to do that? Again, first sale doctrine. Okay? As long as you are not copying the software, you don't need a license. But let's say you buy only the devices but not the software. And then you get a CD, you get a master CD of the software, and you port. The people in the industry use the term port the software into the devices. Okay? So you copy them, you install the software. If you do that, you are copying it, so you need a license. So a lot of times, distributorship agreement, if it concerns the sale of IT products that have embedded software, but that needs to be installed separately, then there has to be a mini license or a provisions that entitle the distributor to copying the software into other devices. The best example will be navigation products. So as a distributor of navigation products, you not only buy the navigation devices and sell them, but you also have to get the map data and give to the customers. Copy those map data into the products and give to the customers. So you copy. To copy, you need a license. Okay? All right. Warranty and disclaimer. Repeat after me. Warranty. All right. Louder. I know it's only 3-4 people here, but warranty.
Warranty.
Disclaimer.
Disclaimer.
Okay. Disclaimer is a disclaimer of warranty. Okay. Disclaimer is a provision that says there is no blah 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 warranty. Okay. We call that disclaimer. Now, as an international lawyer, you should be aware of 3 warranties. And these warranties are needed. These warranties will appear in all products involving sale or license of goods. Sale or license of goods. Or sale or license of goods or services. First, quality warranty. Quality warranty. Okay, so it's a promise. It's a promise by the supplier that the product meets a certain quality. Now, what if it doesn't meet that quality? What if it doesn't meet the quality that's promised? Well, then supplier has the duty to repeat after me. Repair, replace, reimburse.
Repair, replace, reimburse.
Repair, replace, or reimburse. So the supplier will have duty either to repair the products, repair the defective products, or replace them, or reimburse them. Which one is the most preferred by the supplier? Which one do you think is the most preferred by the supplier? Usually, generally, repair, right? Because the supplier doesn't have to fork up the money, right? So a lot of times the room for negotiation is who has the power to choose between the three remedies, between repair, replace, and reimburse. Distributor will want the discretion to choose, and will probably choose reimburse a lot of times. Supplier will want the discretion to choose among them, and will probably choose repair as much as possible, as frequently as possible. Okay, is there a quality warranty provision in the sample agreement? Look it up. Let's find it. Look at 9.1. Okay. It says limited warranty. Product manufactured by and purchased from ABC is warranted to be free from defect and workmanship errors for 1 year after delivery. Free from defect and workmanship. Product which fails due to defective material or workmanship during the relevant warranty period will, at ABC's option, be repaired or replaced at an authorized product repair center specified by ABC, provided the ABC will promptly notify the defect. Okay, if you are a distributor's lawyer, what advice will you give to the client? Which phrase will you want to change? Okay, who can choose between repair and replace? Supply, right? AB supply. So you want to change that. Okay. And also, here there is no option for reimbursement, right? It can only be repaired or replaced, and there is no option for reimbursement. As a distributor, you want to be able to get reimbursed when the product is so bad and beyond repair and replacement. Okay. All right. There are other provisions concerning warranty. We should also review those. So that's quality warranty. Now, there is a provision, and many contracts being passed around have this phrase that supplier shall make reasonable efforts to repair. Okay? Reasonable efforts to repair. Will you accept that as a distributor's lawyer? No, never. Again, this is a real case. I told you about a lot of real cases in this class, but one SI company, system integration company, bought a premium software from a US vendor something like Microsoft. I'm not going to say Microsoft, but something like Microsoft. And then the software just didn't function. And the agreement that they had with this US software vendor was that supplier will have reasonable efforts to repair that software. So the supplier just put in a lot of times and energy to catch the bugs and fix them, but just didn't happen for about 6 months. So it took 6 months for the software vendor to fix the bug, and during which the Korean SI company lost all the business opportunities to sell those products. PL warranty. PL stands for product liability. Product liability warranty. What is product liability? Product liability is a strengthened liability attaching to mass producer of goods. Mass producer of goods. So for a company selling a large number of goods into the market, is held liable for all the defects on those goods, regardless how careful the company has been. Okay, that's product liability. So it's a very strong liability. It's very strong civil liability. Now, in Korea, only manufacturer has the product liability. In the US, both manufacturer and distributor has the product liability. So whoever made the product is in Korea. Well, in the US, or in Korea, whoever made the product is absolutely, strictly liable for all the defects on those goods, but distributor is not. But in the US, both the manufacturer and distributor of the defective goods are strictly responsible for the defects on the product. Okay, that's law. That's something you cannot change by contract. That's a law that's applied to your clients regardless of what agreement they enter into. So what can you do? Well, you can shift. You can shift your first responsibility, your first instance responsibility for the product liability. What do I mean by first instance product liability? So here's a plaintiff who was injured by the defective product, and let's say he bought the goods from distributor and sues the distributor, right? Now, distributor can put in a contract. Distributor can put in a contract a provision that says, if anybody sues distributor for product liability, then supplier has to provide the first defense. Okay. So you will see something like coming from a US company. For instance, let's say the US company is selling very high-tech product, very sensitive equipment that requires a lot of technology. So distributor cannot really change how safe the product is, because the product itself is so closely and sensitively controlled by the supplier, by the manufacturer. Then distributor will ask for a provision like this, because if anything goes wrong with the product, it's not distributor's responsibility, because distributor doesn't have that level of technology, that level of knowledge to make the product safe for the users. Okay. In those situations, distributor will ask the supplier to provide the first defense. Same thing with the supplier. Now, in the US, as I said, plaintiff can sue not just distributor, but can also sue supplier. Now, okay, in Korea, plaintiff can sue only the supplier, cannot sue distributor. So distributor is already safe, all right? But there are times that supplier wants distributor to provide first defense. Why? Or, for instance, let's say supplier is selling the distributor poisonous products, some chemicals that are obviously dangerous. So the safety of the product depends a lot on what advices, what information that distributor gives to the users. Okay. For those extremely dangerous products whose safety depend upon distributors' conduct or distributors' sales and service efforts, distributor will, a supplier will say, hey, if we get sued, it's probably your responsibility not to give proper warnings to the users, so you should provide the defense. The promise to provide the first defense is called indemnification. Repeat after me, indemnification. Okay. Indemnification. So, I mean, if you look at indemnification in dictionary, it will say something like 보상, 배상, things like that. But it doesn't capture this meaning of providing the defense. So, smart Korean lawyers translate that into 보호 면책, because the provision requires the other party to protect and hold harmless. Okay, so hold harmless, 보호해준다는 protect, indemnify. Now there is yet another warranty. Okay, 3P stands for third party, IP stands for intellectual property. Third party IP non-infringement warranty. Okay, when do you need this? Let's say distributor is selling supplier's products later find out that the product infringes upon someone else's copyright. Okay, for instance, we can talk about movie. Let's say supplier gave distributor some movies to sell to consumers. So distributor is selling to the consumers, but these were all illegally made copies. Okay. Now the copyright holder will sue the distributor. Now distributor has no idea whether these movies were illegal copies. What could the distributor have done in advance? Put in an indemnification clause that says, hey, if the products you sold me, if I get sued by a copyright holder or patent holder or any IP holder for infringement of their intellectual properties, because I had no idea how the products were made, because you, supplier, know better about those products, about how you made those products, you should provide a defense. That's called third-party intellectual property non-infringement warranty. So you will typically say that if distributor is sued by a third party for IP infringement, then supplier will hold harmless, protect or indemnify the distributor. So those are three warranties that you should always keep in mind, and whether it's a distributorship agreement, licensing agreement, or any other agreement, you should keep in mind whether you need to put in those indemnifications. You might need one. I mean, quality warranty usually is distributor that needs it. It's usually a distributor that needs this. Product liability warranty, supplier may want it if supplier is selling the products whose safety depends upon the distributor's conduct. All right. Now, you have your sample agreement. Can you look it up and find indemnification clause that I just talked about? It might not say indemnification. Okay. Okay. 10.1. ABC will, the ABC supplier. ABC will defend distributor against the claim that products supplied here under infringe a patent, trademark, or copyright of a third party which applies in the territory, and ABC will pay resulting cost, damages, and attorney's fees finally awarded, provided that distributor gives ABC prompt written notice of such claim, distributor cooperates with ABC in the investigation and defense of such claim and grants ABC with exclusive control of the defense and settlement thereof. Defense는 이제 소송을 얘기합니다. And ABC indemnity obligation with respect to patent non-infringement with the ability to use the products distributed in the manner set forth in the document of the company product without any modification, combination. Okay. So, which warranty is this? Out of the three warranties, which warranty is this? Quality PL or third-party IP? Third-party IP. Okay. All right. Next. Well, it was one slide, but it was a long slide. So, any question, comment on this?
I have one
Okay.
question.
All right.
Regarding the third-party IP non-infringement warranty, if seller, supplier gives the distributor like a representation warranty that this movie is not illegally acquired like that, and also, what's the difference between that and such representation warranty and the IP?
Reps and warranties. Representations and warranties. And warranties. They are the same thing. Now, representations is a statement, right? For instance, there's a in an M&A agreement, there's a reps and warranties that the company is in good standing, or that company has properly authorized this sale or this M&A transaction, or that the board has approved it, things like that. And then those reps and warranties will be like 30, 40 of them in one agreement. Now, these reps and warranties are usually these reps and the remedies for reps and the remedies for violation of reps and warranties are usually damages, money damages. I guess same thing with the warranties. Well, again, as I said, they are the same thing legally, but they are used in different settings. For instance, in distributorship agreements like this, you usually don't see 30, 40 reps and warranties. You don't see 30, 40 representation warranties. You see only the warranties concerning the products. Representation warranties usually show up in an M&A agreement. And why they show up in such a huge number, 30, 40? Because there you want assurances on the value of a company. And the value of a company can depend on a lot of different things, right? Let's say when you acquire a company, what do you buy? How do you acquire a company? By buying the papers, by buying the shares issued by the company. So you want some assurance that those shares have not been, put up for some mortgage. 네, 거기 뭐 증권 같은 게 설정돼 있어서 권리를 행사할 수 없게 되면서 사도 의미가 없겠죠. So, and then if the company has a lot of hidden tax liability, 뭐 지금은 세금 체납 의무가 그러니까 그 세금 채무가 없지만 과거의 거에 대해서 세금 채무가 또 내년에 발생할 수도 있잖아요. 국세청이 3년 전 거에 대해서는 또 다시 조사할 수가 있어요. 또 환경 오염을 했다라거나 또는 노동 채무도 또 발생할 수 있죠. So when the contract concerns the value of the company, usually the buyer requires the seller to agree to a 30-40 representative warranties. And because they come in such a huge number, lawyers usually call that, representation warranties, because some of them are not really warranties, but they are just representations. That the CEO has not committed any criminal conduct. The company has paid. The company has been in good standing for 5 years. You can call it a warranty too, but it's not really promise for future activities or future state of things, but just a statement of the present status. Warranties. In contrast, the warranties I'm talking about concern simpler agreements like distributor's agreement or license agreement. Okay, any other question?
It's not about the warranty, but going back to, you said supplier doesn't have a duty to accept the offer. Then in that case, the distributor doesn't have the direct source to purchase from the supplier. But what if it acquires a material from the products from, like, let's say, outside the territory from the distributor, whom the supplier has another contract? If they source it from that distributor and they sell it within the territory, then do they still have exclusive rating on the product?
Who is sourcing the goods?
Let's say from another territory, because how I said there are.
But who is? Distributor or the supplier?
Oh, the distributor.
Distributor.
Yeah.
Okay. Well.
It has no way to acquire them directly from the supplier.
Right. Well, what do you think? You can answer that question based on what we talked about in the last class. So what you're saying is, here's a territory, here's a distributor, here's supplier's territory, and supplier is not giving the products, so distributor. So let's call T2 is D2. Distributor buys from this other distributor and sell it in the territory. Well, what do you think? Is distributor violating any provision in the contract? None, right? There's nothing. As I said, the core of distributorship agreement is supplier's promise not to sell in the territory. Right? And to complete the relationship, you need these other provisions that supplier will not sell inside the territory, okay? Or supplier will not sell so that it goes into the territory, right? And distributor will also need to promise that it will not sell outside the territory. But there is no promise that distributor will not buy. So in that situation, how can the supplier respond?
Because I thought there is no way the supplier could stop the other distributor to sell.
Oh, no. If the supplier's lawyer was a good one, there must have been a contract between supplier and distributor to D2 as well, right? In the D2, the contract will say distributor will not sell outside the territory. So D2 will not be able to sell outside T2. Okay. So if supplier finds out, supplier will say, hey, you have promised not to sell outside T2 and you are selling outside T2. I'll cut off the supply line. Okay. If you continue doing that. That's how supplier can control.
But in the, the sale by what you call the internet or by mail, is as long as the final consumer, even if the final consumer is outside the territory for that sale, does it not apply?
Sure. I'm not talking about internet. Internet is whole other matter, and there is really it's really difficult to control the sale through the internet. So most contracts just leave internet sale just outside the purview of or outside the control of the contracts. So what if distributor source it through the internet, right? Let's say this is like Amazon, right? So distributor just goes on Amazon and orders say 5 books each, right? 10 times, 100 times, so 500 books, right? Something like that. What can supplier do about that? Or that nothing, because well, even that, maybe I shouldn't say nothing. If supplier really wants, supplier can include the internet sale in this prohibition. I mean, what you just said, that it is a valid sale. I'm not saying that I'm not saying that supplier can cancel any valid sale, but supplier can always threaten to cut off the supply line if that valid sale is against the contractual provision. Now, the reason that internet sale or 과거에는 메일 오더였죠, 메일 오더. The reason that in the past the companies could just forget about internet sale was because if you do the internet sale, you get the products only in small quantities, because they come in usually by courier service, which is really expensive, and people don't order a lot, right? So the quantities and most products and most orders done through the internet are ordered by the end users themselves. Okay, maybe your question concerns this. If it's consumers buying from D2, most contracts say, okay, D2 you cannot sell to D1, but if somebody comes to your website and then orders products, then okay, you can fill those orders. Most of them make allowances. Most of them have permissions, grant permissions for the internet sales, because internet sales through the internet, because the internet sales usually are transactions with the end users or consumers, and those orders do not pose a too big a threat to the global sales strategy of the supplier. Okay, any other question? Okay. All right. OEM agreement is similar to non-exclusive distributorship. So OEM agreement is again now in distributorship agreement, contract is between distributor and supplier. In OEM agreement, contract is between manufacturer and customer. So manufacturer is customer. So manufacturer has a know-how in making some goods, and customer says, "Oh, you make those goods very well. Let me put my brand on them." Okay. So manufacturer has contract with the customer, and customer gets the products from the manufacturer and sells to other people. In this sense, because customer buys the product from manufacturer and resells them, this is like distributor's agreement. So all the things that I talked about so far apply directly to the OEM agreement. This ordering, this one. Ordering, sub-distributor allowed, supply distributor prices, distributors reselling prices, publicity, software, warranty. All the things that I talked about today apply to OEM agreement. And on top of that, customer has usually duty to provide design and specifications, and manufacturer has duty to keep those design and specs confidential. And then usually a reservation on customer's IP that so when customer gives design and specs, manufacturer will use that design and spec to make the products, but that doesn't mean that manufacturer has any right to the design and specs. Okay? So you need a clause that says, that makes sure that customer continues to own the IP in the design and specs. And another clause that's needed for OEM agreement is that manufacturer has duty to fulfill the order. I guess that's the key difference between distributorship agreement and OEM agreement. In distributorship agreement, supplier has power to reject purchase orders. In OEM agreement, manufacturer should not. If manufacturer has a power to reject, then customer will not want to go into OEM relationship with that manufacturer. I mean, the entire reason that you enter into OEM agreement, that you don't produce products yourself, but you rely on somebody else to produce those products, is because you can rely on them. Because if I order 100, they produce 100, right? But then again, manufacturer has its own reasons when it cannot fill those orders, right? There may be times that it cannot fill the orders made by a customer. So to compromise, the OEM industry come up with these terms like capacity forecasting and demand forecasting. So capacity forecasting is given by the manufacturer. So manufacturer says, hey, I can do something like this. Our capacity is like this over time. This is time. This is a quantity. So we can produce this much in this much next month, that much month after that. On the third month, we can produce a lot more. Capacity forecasting. And then the customer is supposed to give demand forecasting. Hey, we need, our demand will be like this. Okay? In the first month, only this much. In the second month, that much, right? Then, so the supplier and manufacturer and customer give each other this demand forecasting and capacity forecasting continuously. And then if customer, so this overlapping period, this overlapping quantities, right? If customer makes an order in this blue area, in the overlapping area, then manufacturer has absolute duty to fill that order, because it's what manufacturer has expected. It was something that manufacturer was put on notice. And another provision that you should think about is manufacturer's IP and know-how.